Hello, I hope you're having a lovely day today. Today's video was actually recorded at the beginning of August. I just haven't gotten around to editing it, but I'm sharing with you 3 of my favorite batch meals that gives us leftovers, because making meals that create leftovers allows me to get other things done besides being in the kitchen all day. Most of the food and meals that I make, pretty much all the meals I make, is from ingredients. It is just so much easier to make simple meals in big quantities, and that way for the next day we can eat the leftovers. And obviously this will depend on your family size. For us, it's just Scott and I, so I'm just following the recipe as is, and it will give us leftovers. But if you have a big family, you can double or triple the recipe, and that way it's taking you the same amount of time to cook it, but then you have so many leftovers, which is such a blessing. So the 3 recipes I'm sharing with you, the first is a taco soup. It is a favorite of ours. It's great for potlucks, or if you know someone who had a baby. It is so nutritious. You have bone broth in it. Normally I make it with chicken, but I didn't have any chicken and I was still craving it, so I decided to try making it with ground beef and sausage, and it was very good. I am collecting all of the ingredients that I can from our garden to put into it, and that's another nice thing. If you grow your own food, it makes life so much simpler because you can base your meals around what's growing in your garden. And we also buy half of a cow every year that stocks our freezer full of meat, and that's also very helpful for meal prep and planning. All right, so this is the taco soup recipe. Here's all the spices for the soup, and here's what it looks like so far. So in it is the 1 pound of ground beef, 1 pound of sausage, all the spices, tomatoes, and okay, I'm gonna let that simmer down, but cream cheese is the other thing that's in here. And now I'm gonna cut up these tomatoes and peppers and put that in here, and then broth, and then salt and pepper, and the oregano, and then that's the soup. And this is what it looks like. It looks totally different using ground beef and ground sausage, but it tastes amazing. The sausage really complements it, and yeah, we eat it with tortilla chips. I could shred cheese over it if I wanted to, but I think it tastes good without the cheese, so we'll probably just eat it with crushed tortilla chips. And that is dinner, and it made a lot. I could even dilute it more with water if I wanted it more soupy, but I kind of like the consistency. This reminds me of an appetizer for like the Super Bowl or something, like a queso-y beef sausage thing. It's very nice. Here is what it looks like with chicken, and it's crushed up tortilla chips on top. Next up is a favorite lunch recipe, and what's nice about this is you can buy canned salmon when you get it on sale. I got this really good brand of canned salmon for $1.99 a can, which is really good, and so I stocked up on a whole bunch of them, and now this is just a go-to lunch for us because it makes a lot of salmon patties and it has very good ingredients. I will link the recipe that I follow below, and I encourage you to write it down and put it in your recipe box, because you never know if someone's website is going to go down and you lose a favorite recipe. So I have this written in my recipe box, and his recipe calls for 1 pound of salmon, and these cans of salmon are 6 ounces, so I use 3 cans in this recipe. His recipe also calls for panko breadcrumbs, which I never have, so sometimes I will use sourdough breadcrumbs that is from bread that if we don't eat it, then I'll dry it out and then put it in the Vitamix into crumbs and then store it in our freezer. Or most likely what I will always have on hand is rolled oats. And so that is what I've used today. I've also even used crushed up tortilla chips, and that also works perfectly fine. And what's also fun is you can use whatever herbs you have on hand. So I do have dried dill from previous year's garden seasons, but if you have fresh oregano or basil or any herbs, it will be so good in here. You may have also noticed that I snuck in some desiccated beef liver powder. I talked about Perfect Supplement's desiccated beef liver powder in my last video, and how sometimes I will sneak it into meals where I don't think you will recognize it, and so that's what I did with the salmon patties, and you would never even know it's in there, and beef liver is so good for you. And I do have a Perfect Supplements 10% off code if you wanted to buy that. I will have all those details below. And we always like eating our salmon patties with ketchup and sour cream, and this ketchup is from last year's tomatoes that I canned and turned into ketchup. And so that is simple batch meal number 2 that you can multiply and make a whole bunch of. This next recipe is a favorite. It is meatloaf and scalloped potatoes. Okay, this is everything that's in this meatloaf recipe, and it is so easy. So I have greased the 2 pans with coconut oil, and then I have 2 pounds of ground beef, and then salt and pepper, and then a 3/4 cup of milk, 1 cup of oats, about a cup or 3/4 a cup of onion, a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, but I don't have any, and I don't have any made. So I'm going to use my coconut aminos. And then 2 eggs. You can use a spoon. I always just find it easier to mix it all up with my hands. And I would use my bigger bowls, but they're all being used with the elderberries that I'm getting ready to take off the stem. So this bowl will have to do. Okay, now once it's all nicely mixed, I will split it between the 2 bread pans. My kitchen is exceptionally dark because we have a storm coming through. Our kitchen's dark anyways because we lived backed up to the woods, but it feels very dark right now. Okay, after that's all patted in, now I will make the ketchup-y topping to put on top. I am out of brown sugar, so I'm going to show you how I make it. I have my organic cane sugar that I just put in here, and molasses. It's probably about a tablespoon per cup of sugar, but I don't even measure anymore because I don't feel like I need to. The molasses I get from Azure because it's the best price. The sugar is from Azure because it's the best price. The coconut aminos were from Azure. And then, yeah, this is a Azure and homegrown and beef farmer meal. So what's nice with making your own brown sugar is you can make it as dark as you like. So if you want a really dark brown sugar, you just add more molasses. Okay, so there's that. And I'm going to make the topping in a mason jar because it makes so much, and that way when we heat up the leftovers, it's not going to all dry out. So I'm not going to cover both all of the way, if that makes sense. You'll see. I've got my canned ketchup from last year. I am so thankful for all the ketchup that I canned last year. I haven't had to buy ketchup in over a year. Okay. This is also something that I just estimate. So this, I'll just show you. Let's see how much this is. 3/4 of a cup of ketchup, 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. Sometimes I'll just use my mortar and pestle and grind up mustard seeds, but I just got this from Azure this order as well. It is the Dijon mustard, so that's what we're gonna add to it. And just a little less than a teaspoon. That's very good mustard. It's just vinegar, water, mustard seed, salt, and spices. And mix this up. I'm adding a bit more brown sugar. I will add the recipe that I've based my recipe off of. That way, if you are a recipe follower, I know sometimes when you make a recipe for the first time, it's easier just to straightforward follow a recipe, and then you just end up making it your own. I'm going to pour this on, but not a whole lot. Because I do want to save it for later, because this will soak in, and I like having a very saucy top when I'm eating it and not be all dried out from baking. All right, now we put it in the oven for 1 hour, and this will end up sharing oven space with our potatoes. So I'll put that to the side. Now we'll work on our potato bake. Okay, now we are slicing our potatoes with a mandolin. These type of things are great gifts to give people. My mom got me this mandolin that has all different types of cutting styles for my birthday one year, and I use it all the time. Okay. All right, and now I might end up cutting more potatoes, but I'm gonna start the layering process. I find this to be very therapeutic. All credit for this potato recipe goes to my sister-in-law, Audrey, for teaching me how to make this. It is so easy. My first time going to Scott's home in South Africa in 2018 was when she taught me how to make this, and at that point in time I had very little cooking skills, and so I needed a recipe like this that anyone can do. So I will try to find a recipe similar, but right now I just eyeball it. All right, and then between each layer of potatoes you're just gonna sprinkle salt, and I would say it's just about that much. The salt really helps it. And then do it again. All through this video you may be hearing noises in the background, and this is when we had our little baby chicks in the kitchen. So that is who you're hearing scratching and pecking. The end pieces that were left on the mandolin I sliced on my own, so they're a little bit thicker. Put those in. You can peel your potatoes. I usually don't, because we either eat our own potatoes from the garden or they're organic, and I just wash them really well. Oh, let me add some more salt. Okay, now we add the heavy cream. And again, I don't have measurements for this. The measurement is you want to cover the top of your potatoes. So it depends how many potatoes you use. My salt is, this is the Baja Gold mineral salt from Measure. Do another layer. All right. That's good. You never want to go to the top of your pan because it will expand and overflow. I might add just a little bit more. All right, into the oven it goes. All right, everything is out of the oven, and here is what this looks like. I did turn this to broil right at the end just to get it nice and crispy. Here's our meatloaf. There's the second meatloaf, which I did not add the extra topping to because we will reheat this tomorrow. And then corn, and that is dinner. I hope that you enjoyed seeing these 3 recipes. I will have everything linked below for you to save and try for yourself. They're all very simple, made from ingredients, and very nutritious. So I hope that you have a lovely rest of your day. God bless you.